Some people search that for years, decades even, trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up. I figured that out when I was 6. When I get an opportunity to speak to young people about college and career choices, I like to tell them how special it was for me to figure that out so early. So I used to say to them, when I was in 1st grade, I fell in love with my teacher. It's always the middle school students that look in shock. Some of them even say, ew. So I had to figure out how I could explain this to them without grossing them out. And so I thought about another instance in my life. It was English class, sophomore year. My teacher had this awesome way of teaching while sitting on the desk. Crisscross applesauce is how we say it in preschool. And so I had literally an entire out-of-body experience where I was in 2 spaces in one moment. I was observing in awe my place in the lesson and our time together. And I realized it was the exchange while I watched her teaching and us learning. It's the exchange, teaching and learning. I fell in love with teaching and learning in 1st grade. And so now I can express that without getting the side-eye from the middle schoolers. And I'm telling you this because it was an entire spiritual circumstance, right? It's a little heavy for college and career talks, but I'm sharing it with you because I know that you know what I'm talking about. I fell in love with teaching and learning. Teachers have the best job on the planet. We say all the time with pride that we are the career that creates all other careers. But what happens when people say things like, kids just aren't what they used to be? Are we really raising the leaders of tomorrow? And what can we do better? Is there actually a literal, decrease in the quality of young people? What does that even mean? People say it all the time. If there is an actual decrease in the quality of young people, who's responsible for that? Them? No, it's us. Who is us? Us. The parents, the educators, the community. It's our responsibility to make sure that the students of tomorrow, the young people of tomorrow, are productive citizens that they can pour into our society. So, what's going on? Why do people keep saying kids today are just not like what they used to be? What do they mean? And how do we measure it? So as an educator, as a teacher, I will let you know, we're all about measurement. You remember this. You took your spelling test every Friday, and you either did good or you either did bad. That's what we do, right? We start with a baseline, we teach, we assess, and then we do it all over again. That's our cycle. And what do we get from that? Data. Data, data, data. That's one of our tools. So what does the data say? And can we actually say that the young people of today aren't what they used to be? And what type of data would we even use? What about dropout and suspension rates? Clearly, if students are dropping out and are being suspended at a higher rate, it's got to mean that there's something going on. So let's talk about it. What do the current dropout and suspension rates say? Well, I'll tell you this. We're kind of sort of still in a global pandemic, right? And so I'm going to just hop right over the last 2 years because we know that students went straight into remote learning. They were awesome. They were amazing. Our educators were awesome and amazing. I'm going to stop and I'm going to pause and I'm going to say, let's give it up for the education system and the way that we supported and held these young people up. We know for sure that coming out of this, there's going to be something happening with our young people probably for years to come. And we're definitely there to support them and hold them up. But what happened even before the global pandemic? So we have data from 2020. So in 2020, we have a status dropout rate. And the status dropout rate is a measurement of 16 to 24-year-olds that are no longer enrolled in school. They are those young people who don't have a high school credential, which includes a diploma or a equivalency certificate like a GED. In 2020, 2 million students, or 2 million 16 to 24-year-olds were in that place, 2 million. And the status dropout rate was 5.3%. Now that's an average, of course. What we know is that there's an increase when we look at subgroups, and most often those are broken down by race. And so there are higher rates of dropout when we look at students of color, for sure. The other rate that we also look at is suspension rates, and that's a temporary time out of the classroom. And so what we found in 2020 is that there was a decrease in suspension rates, but there were huge gaps with race and special ed status, which is super duper important, and I will get back to that later. So why are our students leaving school either temporarily or permanently? And who's responsible? We know that there are factors that actually push students out and pull them out. So the push comes from inside of the educational setting, and the pull comes from factors outside that have to do with their home environment and their community environment. So again, we have to take a look at the school, we have to take a look at the home, and we have to take a look at the community. Now the school is really, really important. There was a time where educators, and we learned this in Podier's book called The Strike That Changed New York City, Blacks, White, and the Ocean Hill-Brownsville Crisis, that there was a labor action that had at some of its core the students and their behavior. And so the position was that there were certain students who needed to have a different setting or methodology to deal with them. We now that it's the actual educators in the school environment that have a lot to do with those things, and we can't really look outside the window. We kind of have to hold up a mirror. And so one of the things that we have done that's a change is create community learning schools, community schools. And that's an environment where students are being educated. The entire child is being addressed. I often tell a story about a teacher who realized that her students weren't doing as well as students in past years. And this school, as a community school, had a partnership with Bausch and Lomb. That is a vision service provider. So when her students were examined, they found that 17 out of 24 pupils required corrective glasses. They needed glasses. Once they got their glasses, through this partnership, what do you think happened? You got it. Zoom. Their academic achievement soared. And so we understand that there are things outside of the teaching and learning that might have an impact on student success. And so we have to do more than come into the classroom with a lesson if we want all students to succeed. So I talked about holding up the mirror instead of looking out the window. What happens though when you look out the window? When you look out the window, what you see is that there are a lot of students who have factors in their home life and their community life that have to impact what is happening in the classroom. Those factors include stressors such as trauma. We don't use the term broken homes, but when the family is dealing with things on their own, it's going to impact the child. Staten Island, Richmond County was a county that had at one point the highest rates of opioid usage and overdose in the city, in the state. We have to look at how that is going to impact our students and pour in support for them consistently and constantly. We have to be there for them. If we wait until there's a problem, what we're going to find out is that it's simply too late. And so recently, I was in a meeting with our current district attorney, and we were talking about, in his community service unit, and we were talking about one such community where there was a lack of cleanliness. And he actually said, imagine walking to school every day in this environment. How do you go from that into a classroom to have a productive, happy, and meaningful day? And so what did we do? We organized a community cleanup. And it's not gonna be just the one. We're gonna do it a bunch of times. We have to do it a bunch of times, because if we're going to change the energy in that neighborhood, if we're going to change what those children have to experience as they're walking to school every day, if we are going to put them in the proper mindset so that they can come to school ready to learn, we, the community, have to commit to making sure that they're successful. So are we really raising future leaders, and what do we need to do better? I think that we are, but I think that we all can do it even better. And I think that what we have to do is consistently and constantly make a commitment, intentionally make a commitment to make sure that our communities are exactly the way they need to be. We need to stop blaming these kids. We need to hold up the mirror. We need to see them. We need to respect them. We need to recognize that we live in a society that has a problem with race, that has a problem with gender, that is sometimes homophobic and xenophobic, and how that impacts them. We are the adults. We are the practitioners. We are the community members. We are the politicians. And we need to do this work. There's this work. My kids tell me all the time, they're a special bunch. We didn't have to be here. And they didn't. They did not. And so it is my job as an educator, it is my job as a community member, it is my job connecting with you to be honest about that, to stop talking bad about our children. I haven't gone down in quality. I actually had a couple of conversations with parents and talk about how entitled this new generation is. That's our responsibility. It's our job. I want to tell you, because I hope you don't say ew, that I fell in love with another educator, and her name is Rita Pearson. And this is what she said. She said, every child deserves a champion. An adult in their life that is going to hold them up, that is going to be there for them, that is going to believe in them. And I implore you to be, as I have decided to be, a champion for our young people. They deserve it, they need us, and we're great at it. Thank you very much.